I mentioned in a previous video, it's the one about the D10, and I said it was on steroids because I put brushless motors, the 2-in-1 hobby wing motors, coupled with wide tracks, and it really made a huge difference. But I mentioned that I was going to probably put brushless motors in the 575. And a couple of guys messaged me and asked, hey, can you do a video of that? So here it is. I've already taken the final drive off here. I still have the other side. I haven't done anything with that yet, but we'll get to it. So the first thing to do, obviously, drop the tracks on both sides, and then you're going to pull this top cover off, and there are two screws. They're 2 millimeters, and then there's a couple screws back here. I think those are 2 millimeter hex screws. And so I've already taken those out. So you just pull that off, remove it. Then you got some more 2 millimeters here, 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 and then these three. Pull those off. And then you have the engine cover. Before you pull that off, you have to take this catwalk, I call it a catwalk, pull this off. So you have these four and these here, but then you also have a little 2 millimeter bolt right here. And so, let's see if I can get this up with just one hand. So you get that out of the way. And now you're at this guy. And so what you have are two 4 millimeter bolts right there and right there. And because of this plate right here, this one is going to be your longer bolt than this one, since it's just going through, you know, the thickness of that. I've already got them loosened up, so just pull those out. And you've got two on the opposite side that are the same. So now you should be able to just pull this whole component up, and there's your speaker. And so you'll unplug that. So these little bolts are 2.5 millimeters, and I'm sure there's other tools that work fine, but this one's made by Waiha, and you can get the whole set. What's good about these is that the wall on this is pretty thin enough to fit barely right in there, so that you can get the good grip on the bolt head. And so let's just take all these off. And keep all the out. You can either take these out now, or you can take the sprocket bolts out first and then these. It really doesn't matter. I've got the Milwaukee with a 4 millimeter socket, which works great. You know, get a good deep well so you can get right along the side. And they come out easy enough. Okay, we got all the 4 millimeter bolts out, and mine have been out a number of times. And I remember the first time that I tried getting these sprockets off, they were on there pretty tight, but they'll come off. Just grab a screwdriver and pop them off. And there's the one sprocket that has or section of sprocket that's got 3 bolt holes. The rest are 4. And this one's always kind of a tough one to get out of there, but it will come. All right, a few months ago, I took my sprockets, and my sprocket teeth were pretty long, and I took them to the bench grinder, and I took off at least a full millimeter from the tip. And then I don't think you can see it, but I put a little bit of a bevel on it, just so it wasn't such a blunt end to it. Because what happened was, I don't know if you're having this with your 575s, but when my sprocket would make probably a full revolution, the bushing that sits in the track, like that, would end up riding up on top of the sprocket, and then it would, as I would continue to move forward or backward, it would snap and go right back into where it should be. And so I thought that was because the sprocket teeth were so tall. That's why I ground them down a little bit, and that did work pretty good. It does it a little bit now, but nothing like it did. And so if you do this with yours, the other side, I was able to get this one out. But this one here, I think the teeth are still just a little bit too long. And this is my dead motor. It doesn't spin. We have to take these 4 millimeter bolts out. We got to take out all of these. And then there's some on the backside. There's 4 on the backside, on the lower edge. We're just going to take that whole thing off, and then we'll be able to get that last sprocket out. It's not supposed to go this way, but it is what it is. Okay, there's the 4 bolts on the backside. One is right there, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so we'll get those removed. I got those removed. I'm going to pull those last, get that out of there, that section, and then I'll rehang the whole assembly minus the sprocket with those 4 so that you can still get a bearing on what we're doing. Okay, that wasn't so bad. I got the 4 removed that were back here, and I've got just 2 holding this whole thing in place. And so now this is where you're going to be right here. So, and we got that sprocket out. That just fell out. And so at this point, just wiggle that off. A couple things to be careful of is that each one of these little planetary gears has got a bearing on each side. So you can see this bearing right here. And when you pull that off, well, the bearing is still in place. So just be mindful that there's 2 bearings per planetary gear. And so you can see there's a bearing stuck right there. And so I'm going to clean all these out and just put them right back in place here. All right, so all the planetaries are back on their pegs here. Each one has got 2 bearings, so that's good to go. And we're going to pull this out for the next stack. And all of these are good to go. It wasn't that long ago when I greased this thing. So I'm just going to set that right in there. And then we'll grab the next stack. All right, so we've got One planetary gear. And once you get all your gears cleaned up, take a look at them, just make sure all the teeth are good. So you can see, you know, we're missing two gears, but we've got 2 bearings sitting here. And there's one planetary sitting there. There's a bearing on the outside, so we'll just drop this right on top of that existing bearing. And get the pliers. And that one's got a bearing. And we'll put that right on top there. So all these planetaries have got both of their bearings, 2 each. And so for this guide pin, just drop that in there, and we can get this bearing off. And then we can slide this out. Now what we have is, just take a rag and clean that out. But you've got some flat hex screws. You can see each one of these. Hopefully you can see it. There's 1, 2, 3. You can see these little divots there. There's a flat hex screw in each one, and I think that it is 2 millimeters. Yeah. And usually these buggers are tight. So don't use a ball end hex. Man. Because you'll just strip a ball end. So I'm going to use a little ratchet and a little X-ray. And loosen and get these taken out. Loosen and get taken out. Okay, got all of them out. And this whole thing comes off. So you can see how those screws hold everything right to the, I don't know what that's called, but holds everything right to that, so it anchors it all in there pretty good. And I can see my DJI is not cooperating with me. One thing that's interesting about my model, I'm not really surprised, is that on the other side, these 4 fasteners, they're 4 millimeters bolts, just like everything else. But on mine, I've got cap screws. They're 2.5 millimeter. So we'll get these here backed out and then see what we got. All right, we had to take everything apart because we need to get to these 2 cap screws, because that's what's holding your motor in here with that one gear that powers your whole planetary gear. Oh, the other thing I want to point out is that on yours, there's going to be a 4 millimeter bolt right here. And it is a pain in the ass because you really can't get to it because this is in the way right here. And you know, you can get it backed out a little bit, but then the head hits here. And so I just eliminated it. You've got 4 back here, you've got all these right here. The metal is pretty thick, it's going nowhere. So I just eliminated that on both sides of mine. Let's see if we can clean some of the dirt out here, because there is quite a bit. It's either a, I'm guessing a 2.5 or a, yeah, it's 2.5. All right, so that one came loose. Man, there's a lot of dirt in there. Let's get that back in place. All right, I don't know why my camera keeps doing that. I had to clean out that cap screw. The head of it was just packed full of dirt. And so this is what you have. Here's the motor. Motor's kind of sitting in there free. And this little drive gear is bone dry. It wasn't that dry. I was sure to lube it the last time I was into here, but there's so much dirt gets in there, it absorbs the grease. So I'm going to take these off. It's a good time to pull that and get some fresh grease in there. So when you get this assembly off, you know, that's what it looks like. You can see a little drive gear in there. Take that out, give it a good inspection, clean it up. And there's the inside. And that's all there is to it. So mine was pretty caked with grease right here. I kind of wiped most of it off, wiped a lot of this off. I inspected all the teeth. They look good. All these teeth here are good. I'm going to clean it up a little bit more, throw some grease on it, throw it back together, and then get that motor out. Okay, so I got the brushed ESC leads disconnected from the motor. And we can just get rid of that thing right now. That's nice. And I've got the positive and the negative that I need to, need to unscrew from the terminal block, and I'll do that now. I was hoping that I wouldn't have to take the cab off. What made me have to really take the cab off is that right there is the cooling fan for the brushed motor. I can't get it out. It's in the way, and it's also connected to a power supply. And then also, I didn't consider this. This is the new 2-in-1 brushless motor that I just really love. This is a hobby wing. It's a 1200 kV, and this part here is a 40 amp ESC, and it works great. But the problem is the leads come out the side, and there is barely enough room, you know, for the can to go, to go through. So that's another reason why I got to take the cab off. In any event, I'm just about there. I'll tell you which fasteners you got to take off. So as you can see, left side of the cab, you have this one, and that one. And then you have that fastener goes down into that hole. And then right behind the cab, there's a, what is that, a 2.5? But I don't even try to take that out. I just loosen it and it stays in that hole, and when it's time to put the cab back on, I know that fastener is in the hole. And so just those fasteners that I told you will take the cab off. And then of course you got to fight with the hand railing, but you know, all in all, it's not a big deal. But let's get this cab out of the way. All right, one important thing to point out, as you lift your cab up and out of the way, these are your really small diameter wires for your lights. Be careful that you don't rip that out. It is connected. All right, that's what it looks like down in there. So this piece right here, that's the fan, just like that one. I haven't done anything with the left side. So that's going to come out, and then we'll easily push the new motor through there and start putting everything back together for the right side. So while I'm here, I just unplugged the bullet connectors for the other motor right there, and the ESC is right there, and I'll be pulling that baby up also. You get this motor in place. And we've got to put the gear on it and get the gear to mesh in that unit that goes right here, you know, the base of the planetary gears. What I found is the easiest way to get these motors mounted is, you know, you have the two mounting screws, those cap screws that go in here that screw into the end of the motor, into the can. But the easiest thing to do is to get this whole piece stationary. So I threw a couple of the mounting screws. For me, I've got cap screws. You're probably going to have 4mm bolts. And so that got that stationary. And then I could reach, let me see here. I can reach down from the top, grab that motor, and then, whoops, wrong way. Then I can take my flashlight and look through these holes to get that motor lined up and have my 2.5mm with a cap screw on the end just sitting in there, ready to go, and I view through this hole, and when I get it lined up, then I'll just tighten this one down and, you know, snug it down. And then that usually has this one lined up, and you can just put the cap screw right in there. So I've got these snugged down nice and tight. Don't go too tight so you don't strip out the threads on the can. But I'm now ready to put these two cap screws in and these 4mm bolts. And if you remember, I scrapped that one. That one's just too much of a pain in the ass to deal with. I don't think it's even needed. So let's start getting this assembled. We're going to start with this component, but hopefully I can just get that lined up without having to back some of those screws out, which I might have to do. Well, no, I think I might be able to get it here. And these, I think, are 2mm. Let's see. That is correct. All right. All right. That's looking pretty good. Okay, so we're going to take this roller bearing. We're going to get some fresh grease on it. All right, we'll slide that guy right in there. Perfect. Okay, getting a little ahead of myself. Let's get those 4mm in and those cap screws. I'm going to go with some removable Loctite. It's the 242. I'm just going to get these started. All right, so I got all my fasteners in. So before I start throwing all the final stacks in, just want to make sure that the motor works and that the ESC works. So let's give it a little test spin. Well, there we go. Look at that. Nice and smooth. We'll start putting the planetaries back together. All right, here's the first planetary stack. I'm going to get a little bit more grease on this main gear on the back side. All right. And get these planetaries started. This takes a little bit of wiggling. Usually doesn't take that much of an effort. There we go. Okay, so we got those in place. Now we got to get that center one. All right. On to the next stack. There. There. All right, so I put a little dab of grease in here for these planetaries. There. If you remember, when we took this apart, I had problems with the sprocket right there because this drive was dead. Well, we know it's not dead now. All right, again, I'm using removable Loctite. I'll get that into place. I'll just snug that one down. All right, now we'll advance this sprocket right down in there. Yeah, good time to test the planetaries also, and everything seems to be good. All right. We still have these guys to put in. And we'll go over to the other side. I'm not going to record that because it's the same as this side. But I've got just a minute to put these in, and I'll get started over there. All right, so we got this side done. We got all these 2.5 millimeter bolts in. All of these are in. We know that the motor works, final drives are good. All of these are tight, those are tight, and the 4 in the back, if you remember those 4 bolts are fastened down nice and tight. Everything has removable Loctite. Pretty important to have that on there. All right, so just to show a few things. I've got one battery lead here to power the left track. And that battery lead to power the right track. Here's the lead that the battery plugs into. Provides the overall power. Here's one on-off button that's going to go right there. And here's the other one. So both finals are on, and they operate as they should. All right, so I've got the 575 completed. Tracks are back on, and you know, the engine component, the cab, everything is on. Tracks look good. And I decided to put the ESC on-off buttons right here. And that's a perfect place for it. It'll work out fine. So I got the battery plugged in. Turn on the left track and the right track. This thing just moves so nice and smooth. Look at that for super slow motion. And then it's got a pretty good top speed to it. You don't want it too fast. But I tell you what, these 1200 kV motors are perfect for dozers. I appreciate you guys watching.